Hey everybody, going live, Dakota Grappler Wednesday night. Man, it is doing well. The wrestling season, and we're on the home stretch. I'd say it here. Got a great guest tonight. Got Lex Lunde. He's been, around the scene for a long time. I remember him back in Kindred when he first got to West Fargo. Now that's a long time ago. That's how long Dakota Grappler's been around. But he's been since I would say the beginning of the Sheyenne wrestling program. Been there. They've been around for about 7 years. Is that correct? Yep. And he's seen it all, basically starting from the beginning. So we're going to talk a lot about that tonight. And we will have Bill on hopefully shortly. He's a little delayed. Hopefully he'll pop in, weather in Carrington, taking care of his dogs. Bill will be around shortly. We've had a lot of things happening in wrestling. We have a very big weekend, and we're going to start right there coming up. It's probably going to be one of the tougher weekends for Cheyenne wrestling program. It'll be challenged a little bit because they have a tournament right there in Fargo, a lot of duels. Let's start off there. So let's talk a little bit about the tournament this weekend, and then we're going to talk about you a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
So let's tell us about the tournament that's happening in Fargo this weekend.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of going back to when we were at West Fargo, this tournament was always in Grand Forks. They call it the Grand Forks Multiple Duels Tournament. I want to say five years ago or so, they canceled it. Some teams weren't going. I know the East in general was struggling at that time. We had West Fargo being a powerhouse. Everybody else was trying to figure it out, us especially. So we weren't going to that. We always went to the Lisbon Storehawk tournament to get our kids individual matches because we had 5-6 kids maybe. After 2 years, I want to say, I talked with Keenan Spees at the state tournament. I said, we got to get this back. Now that our team is growing, I think any time that we can wrestle the West teams is going to be beneficial for our kids because it's just really good competition, stuff that we don't see week in and week out. So we worked on it. That following year, I think Keenan set it up to where it was at Davies. They just hosted it there, and first year was smaller, but I think teams were starting to get excited about a dual tournament where the West teams wrestle the East and the East wrestle the West. After that, it took off. We wanted to split it between 2 schools. We weren't in a position to host it. We wanted to. I know last year was supposed to be our first year hosting it, but COVID kind of shut all that down. So it was at West Fargo High and then Davies. And now we're getting a chance to host our first ever tournament Friday and Saturday at Cheyenne. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Super stressful, but we have a great parent base. Parent organization kind of working through all that and figuring it out. So yeah, I know for us specifically, we're going to have a meat grinder this weekend. We start off with 2 duels on Friday, 5 and 6:30, 5 and 7, something like that. So we'll start off with Bismarck Century. Right after that, we'll have Bismarck High. And then the following morning, we have 3 in a row. We'll have Bismarck Legacy, followed by Williston, and then Turtle Mountain. So it's going to be a tough week for the Cheyenne Mustangs, but we're excited about it.
Put right into the fire of things.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I tell you what, you got 2 big conference duels also. Tell us about those this week.
Yeah, so we talked about this a little before, but this week for us in our history at Cheyenne is probably going to be the toughest week. We start tomorrow night at Davies, conference match. And I'm going to explain to everybody too. I know the post they put out on Facebook said Cheyenne Mustangs as the front runners in the East in 2022. That's not true.
It's clickbait.
It is clickbait. I know Keenan probably saw it, and I know Aaron Larson probably saw it, so it put a target on our back. But yes, we start off tomorrow night with Davies, which is a team that we have never beat in our history, and that's that next stepping stone we've been talking with our kids talking to them about in practice. We got to take care of this one, get to that next step, and then we had a rescheduled duel next Tuesday now with Valley City. So we're going to be, I said it before.
And history there is also
we've never
Valley
beat
City.
Valley City either. So we got a good team. We got a bunch of hard workers, and we're excited for this challenge. I know the kids are going to be up for it. I know Keenan's got his team ready, and I know Aaron's got his team ready as well. So we're going to come out and, try and score some points and make it fun.
And battle.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. The biggest thing I've noticed of your team is the self-confidence. I see a lot of guys going into matches hard, and it's not like us going into a match scared. And that's a tribute to the coach, having them prepared. It's a hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do when you have to battle against kids that are tough all the time. So this will be a big test for your team this weekend, because I tell you what, Bismarck is not going to back down. Century's not going to back down. No one's going to want to give you an easy match. So this is going to be a good test coming into regions and state in a month here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, part of it too, it's not just me, it's the other coaches in the room too. Logan Lane, my older brothers, and then Zach Burby, one of our cousins. We've all it's a family affair in our wrestling room. But no, it starts with all of us. I mean, we feel like we run our practice room as the hardest matches they're going to have in the season. So there's no reason to go out into a match and be nervous or be scared. I was watching one of these episodes a while back. I can't remember who it was. South Dakota State's coach.
Okay.
Talking about, not being scared. I mean, we all know the outcome.
Damian Hahn, yes.
Yeah, we all know what's going to happen. Either we're going to win or we're going to lose. That's it. Those are the only two options. So we spend hours and hours and hours in the practice room working on technique and how to score points and how to get in these tough situations. There's no reason that you should be worried out there. Everything that you've done in the room is going to translate out in this match. So by thinking too much or getting in your own head or not being confident, it's not going to help you. Mm-hmm. So that's what our team has really kind of bought into this year. It's a lot of, wrestle hard, have fun, and showcasing to the state or to the East or to the West what we've been doing. And I'm excited for the kids. I think they're really stepping up to the plate this year. And it's good to see them have success. It's good for our school to see another sport have some success when our first 4 or 5 years, it was pretty ugly. But we're here now, and that's kind of the new floor for us. So we qualified for state duels last year for the first time ever. That's it. We're never not going to qualify for duels again. That's kind of what's in these kids' heads. And the work they put in that wrestling room is proving it.
Very good. So do you contribute your coaching style to some of the West Fargo you grew up with, or some of because you went to Concordia, correct?
Yep. We can talk a little bit about it. I mean, it kind of started too in Kindred. So we moved from Kindred to West Fargo in 2004. And we had a great coach there, Jeff Weber. And he kind of walked us through how to be young men and how to love the sport and how to do things the right way. Which it came full circle when our first year we coached Charlie Weber, his oldest son, in our first season. But when we transferred to West Fargo, there's another great coach there too, and Steve Marquardt. And we learned a lot from him. And I'm sure Kale Denger would say the same thing when he took over when Steve left. And that's another great coach that we had after it. But it was Steve Marquardt who kind of taught us everything. And we just followed through with that with Kale.
I'll pause you just on 1 second. Well, Steve Marquardt was as assistant at Century when I was there. And he was a volunteer assistant. He came in, and he is an uncle of Terry and Troy Steiner.
Yep.
And honestly, the guy was very humble, and he just worked. He was a workaholic, took everything in, and he would pick out the littlest thing and work with everybody. And that's the thing that I always, there was some pride behind when I watched him. It was not just picking out the studs, because Terry and Troy, of course, were studs, that type of thing. But he would pick out the smallest guy or do anything and just work on one thing in this practice. We're going to fix this. We're going to do that. And that's meticulous. A coach has to find those things.
Yep. Absolutely. No, you're exactly right. And that we talked earlier too, that's kind of our connection with the Steiners as well. Mm-hmm. Troy came out and helped us with the camp this year, and that's all Steve Marquardt. They did a camp. Troy and Terry did a camp with us, I want to say in 2005 at West Fargo High, just a day camp. They came in and ran a practice for us. Hearing stories from Troy this summer about Steve, and hearing stories from Steve as well when we were being coached by him, it's all true. He was meticulous. I mean, I remember as an 8th grader, I was a JV kid when we transferred to West Fargo. He still worked with me. Mm-hmm. On little things. And there were things that I saw in matches that he might not have said, hey, we're working on this because of Lex or because of Lane or Logan. but it was things that I remember specifically being in those situations in a match. And a kid who loves the sport and loves to work, they're going to understand that. And I feel like that's why West Fargo was always good. They went from Steve Marquardt to Kale Dangerud, who took a lot from Steve as well. And you had that entire group that Steve had been coaching since
you
were.
You put a little
10.
flavor of Randy Berwick into that mix.
We've had our share of Berwick stories too. So yeah, it was the little Hettinger fire that we got from Kale.
Oh yeah. So true. No, I'm very happy to see the maturity of your team. Because honestly, when you're coming in, it's fresh and new. You kind of seem like you're not only the underdog, but you're not respected to start off. Yep. It takes a lot of work for new wrestling coaches to be respected. Do you remember your first state placer?
Yeah, it was the first year, 2015, Charlie Weber. And then we also had another placer that year, Brody Farmer. So yeah, we had 2 placers that year. We were hoping Charlie would have placed a little bit higher than he did. Mm-hmm. That was one of those, it was 195, and it was everybody's year that year. I remember Chase Tykin from West Fargo won it.
Yep.
And we had battles with him all year. And so we were hoping to get a good draw and kind of go from there. But at that point, I mean, Charlie Weber had just gotten cleared from his snowmobile accident. So he was out for 3 years.
I forgot about that. That's correct.
Yeah. So he was wearing his mask and his full headgear. And we were honestly just super excited that he was able to wrestle his senior year. So that's
why he stuck out the most to me in remembering your first state placer, because it was him.
Yeah. And it was super exciting for him.
I saw a lot of tears. That's one of those where if I had a camera to go back and look at the parents during that time and the relatives, that was one that I remembered.
Yeah, it was not only big for him. It was big for us though. I mean, when Charlie got injured his freshman year, and that was in the middle of Dynasty West Fargo High. So he was wrestling there, and we were thinking, man, this Charlie's going to have a good future. He's going to be another solid big boy at West Fargo. And then the school split and snowmobile accident, and then he comes back, and he started it off the same way though, just the hardest worker I've ever seen. It was always yes, sir, no, sir, whatever it is, I'm going to do my best in practice. And I think a little bit for him was, I'm just happy to be out here and doing the sport that I love and haven't been able to do for 3 years. So yeah, it was super exciting for him. Got our first placer, and yeah, we're excited with him. He still comes into the room here and there and wrestles with the big boys every once in a while. So that's good.
How about your first finalist, Mustache Boy?
First finalist, Shane Kennedy. Yep. Fun thing, he's had that mustache, I want to say, since he was a freshman or a sophomore.
Okay.
Shane was always just fun kid. I mean, lighthearted and cracking jokes and working hard. And he really didn't start to turn it on until the end of his sophomore year. He was one of those kids, 8th, 9th grade, would show up twice a week. Never knew if he was going to be there. Decided freshman year that he might want to try swimming instead of wrestling. So he did that, and we missed him for the first couple weeks. And it was just one of those things where he saw so much potential. And then it was EDC his sophomore year. He started doing tilts on top, like we've been working with him because he had such long arms.
He's long, yep.
Yeah, and it finally worked. So I think he ended up beating the 3rd or 4th ranked kid in the state for 3rd and 4th. And I mean, just turning him. And it was good for him because he could kind of see what was happening.
He was like a Pied. His senior year seemed like a Pied Piper. I mean, kids were following him around even.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So you see a 17, 18-year-old kid who's 6'4" with a mustache and looks like he's 40 years old and is successful on the mat. These young kids want to be around him. And so that was kind of part of it. We had talked with him about, okay, now it's focusing on wrestling in school, being a mentor, being a leader, and trying to help these young kids because you're the reason most of them are out here. And so that was our big thing his senior year. And made the finals. I still think he kind of got hosed in the finals on that overtime takedown. And I'll save my words with Ripplinger another time. We can have a conversation, I suppose. But Yeah, he was one of those kids where he busted his butt, and just naturally talented. And his last 2 years is really when he started focusing on, okay, not just this tilt, but now what's the next move I can do after this? How can I transition from here to here? And that's how you could really start to see the success with him.
What are your numbers like right now?
So it's a little bit skewed for us. We have our middle school kids in our varsity room all year.
Okay.
Until
really?
their season is done, and then they have the choice to stay with us or not. So when we have all of our middle school kids in with us, this year we had 45, somewhere around there. And then that's the girls program with us as well.
Okay.
So
how many girls do you have right now, too?
5.
5, okay.
Yeah, we have 5 girls, and Morgan Strandberg's obviously the captain and leader on that program. So really helps to have her there, kind of showing these younger girls how to do things and how to get ready, how to stay motivated, and how to approach the practice.
She's been tough since she's been 8.
I know. She's going to be one that when she graduates this year, it's going to be a tough one to lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember them being Minot forever, and her dad and all the other things forever, and I always said this is going to be your toughest one right here, and I was kind of joking with them, but really it might be. It's kind of funny. I haven't run into her dad for a long time. I'd like to do that again sometime.
Yeah.
No, so let's go through your team a little bit. Now, walk up and down some of your lightweights. You feel free to go. Bill, if you have anything you want to ask, feel free anytime.
Yeah, no, I guess I just trying to add. I kind of had followed this team from afar a little bit. Carter's Inc. would be, there's some Carrington ties, and I'd see Chris, different places we talk about it. So seeing when you guys got to the state tournament last year was pretty exciting. And then, I really saw kind of the stuff you were talking about at the state tournament, right? I mean, we saw a lot of fire, saw guys that love to wrestle, didn't want to lose, so it was fun. It was fun to watch. I was glad to be, Matt's side to see a lot of that stuff. So I'd be interested to hear you go through the squad a little bit and give us some updates.
Sounds good. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll start right away with 106. It's Carter's little brother, Landon. Landon Zink. So a kid that, we obviously knew about. We knew he was winning youth tournaments and wrestling tough. And, you could see some success from these 4th, 5th, 6th graders. And a lot of it could come with just strength or being bigger and stronger than kids. That wasn't necessarily the fact with Landon. He is strong for what he looks like. I mean, he's about 105 pounds and a 12-year-old. He reminds me a lot of Jordan Shearer as a 7th grader from West Fargo High. Now, this isn't me saying he's going to be the next 6-timer, mind you, but the way he attacks practice and matches and the way he's focused on learning new things, he's always been technical, and it's just getting better, which is exciting to see because, I mean, you guys probably know it too, but 12-year-olds coming into a varsity room, and you could have big eyes and not really know what to do and things like that. But he's super mature. Part of that is because Carter is on the team and a captain, and that's my big brother. I don't want to screw around and make him mad. But he's one that we're super excited about. Ranked 3rd. I mean, he's anywhere in from that 3rd to 6th. Lost to Abdi Nur from Davies at the Rumble in the JV tournament, but then beat Hudson Eggerberg in that same tournament from Bismarck. So that's one of those things. I feel like Landon can wrestle with almost anybody. We did wrestle Colton Grebel once this year and got majored. Colton's a stud though. So we're excited for Tuesday again. We'll see how that goes. Then going up to 113, we have Stetson Gisselbeck. He's currently ranked number 3 in the state right now as well. He's been wrestling in our youth program since we started our youth program. So we've seen him forever. Last year was our backup at 106 and was one of our alternates behind Carter's Inc. So he's had experience. He is an absolute grinder. I mean, he works his butt off. He's super strong. Looks like a string bean, but he's just strong. So excited for him. We wrestled DeForest at the Rotary, got pinned. I don't know if he went out with the best mindset. So I'm excited for him to wrestle him again this week at the Metro Duels. And then we haven't wrestled Marker from Minot yet. So we were hoping to get matched up with them at Metro Duels as well, but that would have just made the tournament even tougher, I think. So yeah, we're excited for Stetson as well. Another kid on that team who wrestled every youth tournament possible, traveled, did the whole circuit, all that stuff, and he's growing up now, which is good. So yeah, 120 we have Jackson Alexander, a kid who also has been in our program now for a couple of years. He's a freshman. He's starting to grow now, which is good. He's always been just a little bit light for 106 and a little bit lighter than his buddies or teammates, and couldn't really crack the lineup. So we're excited for him. Super strong. Now it's just getting a little more confidence in him. That's the big thing is as soon as he believes in his technique and his strength, he's going to be a tough one to beat. 126, then we got Carter Zick, who's been with us now for a while. Again, he was a good one to get into our lineup. He was always light. Landon's way bigger than he was when he was that age. But Carter's still growing. He's at 26, and I think he's ranked number 6 right now in the state. And he's another one, too, that I've seen a different level of confidence in him. In the years past, he's had a fireman's carry and a cradle. And as soon as kids figured that out, he didn't know how to transition into something else. And he's starting to learn that now, which is making him a little scarier. And you can kind of see the confidence just exude from him. Took second at the Wahpeton tournament this year. And then he ended up winning the Valley City tournament. So that was a good one for him as well. Again, you start to have a little success, and then your confidence just builds, which is good. He needs that, and we're excited to have him for another 3 years after this. 132, a fifth-year starter for us, Xander Spray. Again, he's qualified for state now since his since his freshman year, excuse me. But he's always been there. He is a hammer on top, just mean and aggressive, and he's one of those kids. If we need a fire starter in our duel, we hope to start at 132 because he sets that tone and is just super focused. Was our second ever placer at the Rumble on the Red tournament. Took 7th this year. All of his wins were by pin, and all these kids that he beat there were tough. So it was just a fun tournament for him to get some success. He avenged a loss at the Valley City finals against Grady Anderson and beat him. So we're excited about him. With Cole Irwin in the East as well. That's our competition here as well. We're hoping to avenge that loss as well from our duel. But we're excited for Xander. I think next year he's following us coaches and he's wrestling at Concordia, which is good. So excited for him and the rest of his senior year.
As a spectator trying to match up duels, that's where you guys are scary. You know, you got all these guys ranked in the lower weight classes.
Yeah.
And so those guys have to put points on the board. If you're going to face someone like a Century opening round, you're on Friday and all the other stuff. It's a big.
And that's kind of it too. I mean, you guys talked about it and we preach it with these kids too. Score points, find a way, you know, and in our first couple of years, it was tough to really tell a kid like, hey, we hope we get a win here, but we need bonus. You know, you can't really do that. You know, and at the same time, the opposite side of the spectrum, hey, you can't get pinned here. You know, and so now you're putting a lot of this pressure in our first couple of years with kids who didn't even like the sport, who didn't want to be there. Now these kids understand, like you brought up earlier, John, with Tech Team, they were in these dual tournaments and they understand what the points are. And okay, it's coming down to me. I got to major this kid to win the duel. And it's stuff that we don't have to put on these kids because they already have it.
Right.
So that's what's exciting. But yes, our kids have really seized the opportunities. And if they get somebody on their back, they're probably going to pin them. And that's the exciting thing for us. And it's necessary too. Our lower weights are on paper and probably just from watching our matches, our lower weights are probably our better wrestlers. Our upper weights, we got newer kids out. And they're still trying to figure out where they're at and what their strengths are. So we like to have that big lead going into the upper weights. And these kids, these lower weights, they kind of pride themselves in that. So it's fun to watch them get this train rolling, as we say. So, going up to 138. We have Marcus Johnson, 2-time placer for us. He was another one with Stetson who was in our first ever youth program. Him and his little brother Mason. And so it's good to see him grow and mature and become a young man. And he's another one too that just pins. He loves pitting people. And I don't know if it's a pride thing for him or what, but we have 3 kids or so on our team now who are getting to that record pins, leader in Sheyenne history. And I think they just want to one-up each other. And I'm fine with it. I think it's great. And I don't know if they're talking about it on their own, but Marcus is one of those where, last year with our COVID year, he didn't lose a match until February, when Danny Montetuckwa wrestled him and bumped up a weight for state. So up until that, I want to say he had probably 28 matches last year and 24 were by pin. Yeah. So it's hard to teach a kid to be a pinner. That comes from, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, figuring out how to get kids on their backs, figuring out where your weight should be and balance and all that stuff. And he's got it. And he makes a lot of these other kids in our team better just by getting in funky situations and feeling the strength that he has. And, looking right underneath him, Xander Spray, 60, 61 pins, something like that in his career. It's the same thing. If they get you on their back, they're probably going to keep you there. So we call it Murderer's Row here, from 126 to 152. That's kind of where we, normally, and this week
make your money.
Yeah, we're gonna put up some points there, which is good. But yeah, we'll get to 152 here. I'm excited about that this weekend. But yeah, 145 going up from there. Connor Manske, another one for us. He was the youngest state placer for Sheyenne as a 7th grader. Took 8th at 106. Following year, he was ranked number 2 in the East to Ethan Miller, who they're going to battle again this year a bunch. But he broke his collarbone in the EDC finals against Ethan Miller that year. And so we didn't get to wrestle at state, but that would have been another high placer that we would have had with him. And then last year, wrestling 138, lost in the semis to Brant Fisk, and then ended up taking 5th place. So he's a 2-time placer for us. He's a freshman. Sophomore, excuse me.
Sophomore,
Yep. And yeah, he's going to have another one too if LJ wrestles this week. It's going to be a barn burner. We've been looking forward to that one. I know Connor has. With these kids, and you guys have talked about it too, we want to wrestle the best kids. We want to see where we're at, and it's only going to help us down the line. So they're excited about that, and we're hoping we see LJ this week. But yeah, with him, he's another one too. He's tall, strong. He's length strength, we call it, and he's another one. You get some kids on their backs, and he doesn't want to let you go. So we're excited with him. Then, 152, we talked about this, John. This one is going to be a meat grinder this week. Kellen tomorrow. Kellen Hornet is going to have, even in our duel against Davies, Malachi Wermeyer, who's solid. And then we go in, we have Cole Redens from Century, who's ranked 5 or 4, ahead of Kellen, either way. And then we follow up with Tate Olson and Bismarck, who's solid. Then the next day we have Cattermas from Legacy, who's ranked ahead of Kellen. And then right after that, Williston, we have Cutter Jones, who's ranked ahead of Kellen. So those are 4 tough ones that he's going to have. And luckily, Kellen, again, a 4-year captain on our team and a senior this year, has really it's always been a grind for him. It's always been something that he has to tackle head on, and he's got the mental fortitude to do that. He could take the easy way out, but he never would want to do it. He's always going to want to grind for that win and prove himself against everybody. So he is. Logan Lane and I were talking the other night. Kellen is the definition of battle tested, and he's been kind of a pinnacle of our team since he was a 7th grader. Qualified for state every year, and has never been the most talented kid, but has always busted his butt and done what we asked him and believed in everything that we've done. So this is just another test for him, and I know he's going to be ready for it. And I know our younger kids are always going to look up to him too. So
yep.
excited for Kellen.
Yep, and Ethan Miller on Tuesday.
Well, and that's so if Ethan goes up to 52, I don't know, but he's at 45 with Manske. So yep. We'll see. Either way,
I could see him bumping up in the duel. We'll see.
Yeah, I know Larson's probably got a couple tricks up his sleeve. So, but yeah, either way, we're excited. He's not going to have any other easy matches the rest of the year. I mean, Nick Anderson at West Fargo, number 1 in the state now, and I think we lost 4-2 or 5-2 to him in the duel. And then Porter drops down at the Rotary last week, so that's another hammer in there. If he's going to stay, I don't know. And then Aiden Ruddy from Breckenridge Wahpeton, who's ranked ahead of him too. So 152 is a man's weight class, and we're going to be fine with our guy Kellen. So we believe and trust in everything that he's been doing. 160 has been a kind of a different spot for us. We started with Gage Faloon. He's a freshman, as just somebody who was filling a spot and is one of our alternates. And a really strong kid who also trusts in everything that we're asking him to do. He's at 145 right now, so he's always been lighter, but he's been doing it for the team, and that's tough for a lot of kids to do, especially a freshman who's trying to figure out where they fit in the sport, what style of wrestling they're going to have, because when you're wrestling those big, strong kids, you don't get to your technique a lot of the time. It's just trying to survive.
Right.
So we've been really happy with everything he's done. And so we're happy with him at 45 as an alternate now too. But we got Sawyer Carr back, another one of our wrestlers that we've watched since tech team days, and super talented. But he's healthy now, working hard, and he's still a little light for 160, but excited to have him out there. And he's one of those high flyers, loves to score points, loves to hit some throws, is never out of position. But it starts that way from age 6. I mean, learning those lat drops and wrestling Greco and freestyle and doing all that stuff. So it's exciting for him to have a spot on this team finally. And we're excited for him to finally get a chance to wrestle EDC and have a chance to get on that podium at state. 170, another fill-in, Maddox Weigel. He's filling in for Ashton Schaff, our junior this year. He wrestled, the last time he wrestled this year was in the West Fargo duel, and got injured, and probably won't wrestle again in his life. We're hoping for the best, but we were excited for him after coming off a couple camps this summer. Went to the Thorn camp, and was really, really excited about showing new moves and continuing to improve. So it's a bummer that we're missing him the rest of the year. But Maddox Weigel is filling in, another light kid. He's a freshman, and he's another one that we're throwing to the wolves. I mean, he's wrestling some solid 170 pounders. There have been duels where we've bumped him up to 182 when we need to, and it's a learning experience for him, trying to figure out where he's at and lasting 6 minutes. I think that's the huge thing.
He's got some pedagogy, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's got some Napoleon background. You got to understand.
The family ties are huge, and he's got that Napoleon blood with. Yep, absolutely. So,
grandpa, yep.
We're excited for him. He's taking his lumps right now, but it's only going to pay off in the future. All these kids need to understand it, and we've used Kellen Hornet as that example. Kellen took his lumps the first 3 years, and now he's here. He's a face and name that people know about, and it's all paid off. So just keep fighting, and good things are going to happen. 182, same thing, Ryder Weigel. So Maddox's older brother. He's been in the lineup. We also have Caden Manske, who's been stepping in a little bit, Connor's little brother. So family affair, like I said, in the Cheyenne room. But it's good. They all keep their brothers in line, and it helps us coaches out a little bit too. Logan and Lane have to keep me in line as well, so they see it. But no, Ryder and Caden, same thing, just working hard, taking their lumps and figuring things out. It's a long year. Can't beat yourself before you get on the mat, and they're really working on that. So we're excited for their futures too. 195, we had a transfer last year from Hopkins, Minnesota, Will Post. He's a senior this year. He was a kid, like I said, transferred kind of in the time where we were shut down from wrestling with COVID. So he came in, and we've had this before where I get emails saying, hey, we got a new kid. He says he wants to wrestle. And usually they've been gone the next 3 days. They didn't last. Will was one of those kids who stepped in immediately as a leader, as a mentor, and just a hard worker. And he stepped in, took 5th place last year at a tough 182 weight class. And especially when you don't wrestle any of these West kids at all throughout the year, it was good for him to beat a couple kids. So excited for him now. He's ranked, I want to say 4 or 5 right now. And he's lost to kids that he's beat. So he's still trying to figure that out. But big, strong 195 pounder. Really going to miss him next year as well when he graduates. But we're excited for him. He's got a big one with Manske on Tuesday from Valley City. So not saying that this is what's going to happen, but the duel is likely going to be decided with that match. That's a big one, and we're excited about it. We haven't seen him yet. He didn't wrestle, or Manske didn't wrestle at Valley City, and then we haven't seen him at any other places. So we're excited to wrestle that one, and I know Will's looking forward to it too. So then 220, Dawson Gauldy, second-year wrestler for us, was a football kid. A kid that I taught at Cheyenne and coached in football his 7th grade year and tried to get him out since then. Didn't come out for wrestling until his junior year last year. So missed out on a lot of experience and things like that, but I'm just happy we got him. So it was a big thing for us to get him and show the correlation between being on the offensive line and wrestling. And this is only going to better prepare you for football. And it was the same thing. So this year they ended up winning the state championship. And he talked to us immediately after. He said, I was way better than I ever was in football with leverage and hand control and balance and all that stuff. So it takes kids like him to now tell these 7th grade football players that we got out, this is why you're sticking it out in wrestling. It's going to make you better in football. I don't need wrestling to be your number one sport. But if you stick with it now for the next 5 years, you're going to be pretty damn good. And like I said, with him teaching these younger kids to do that, it's only going to help the football team and our wrestling team. So that goes into it with our heavyweight too, Theron Parson, all-state defensive tackle for Cheyenne this year. One of the best players in the state. Super athletic. Another one that I coached football in 7th grade. Asked him to come out every year since then, and he finally came out his senior year, and one of the more freakish athletes I've ever coached. I saw it as a 7th grader. I saw it as a freshman, sophomore, junior. Wanted him to get out and see what he could do on a wrestling mat, and he figured it out this year. And I mean, you guys will see him too. Not the most technical, but he is a fireball. Fast and athletic, and is a true competitor. I mean, just doesn't like losing. And he knows that he's going to lose quite a bit in his first year, but that learning curve has been so much quicker for him than any other heavyweight or any other big boy that we've gotten out. And it's super exciting to see some of the things that he's doing in the practice room. And then we're seeing it happen in a duel. It's really big for him to have some success, and it's really big for our team and our 7th grade football players as well. So that's our lineup. I could talk forever about these kids. This is the first year too where we've had depth at every weight. I know tomorrow in our duel, Keenan and I were setting up a JV duel for the first time in our career. So depth is the big thing. We've had injuries, sicknesses, things like that, and we've had other kids to jump in, and they're having success, and that takes so much stress off of us coaches. We know that we're confident in the kid that's right behind them, and they're ready to go when their name gets called. So,
no, I tell you what, it takes a lot to build a program. And especially, as schools split and you're going to have it happen again. Do you want to explain to people what's happening in the near future in Fargo, the Horace School?
Yeah, you're right. It's happening again. I think they're having a vote for sure on the district areas next Monday. But yeah, so we have West Fargo in the north, and then we have us, Cheyenne. We were the south school, and now we got one about 10 miles south from us. That's going to be Horace High School. And I don't know if you guys spend much time in West Fargo, but to the south of us, it's all development area. So it's all new families, young families.
So are you basically interstate down to Walmart, or where?
Yes.
That's basically what you are, to that South Walmart?
To 52nd. And
52nd.
Then, even before Horace was a high school, we've had Horace kids come into Cheyenne as well. So I understand. I'm not sitting here saying that the divide isn't necessary. It is. We have too many kids in West Fargo, and we need to get split up. The tough part, and West Fargo people could probably say the same thing. We took the whole developmental area from them just south of the interstate. So I get it. I'm not going to stand on a soapbox and say that we need all these kids, but it is tough. I mean, now it's going to be half of Osgood from 40th.
Okay.
And down through Horace is likely going to be going there. The full high school will be here 2 years from now. So they have freshman and sophomore there. Next year will be freshman, sophomore, junior, and then the following year will be a full high school. I don't envision them starting a wrestling program that year. That's yet to be decided. My thought, and I guess my ideas would be 5 to 6 years will probably be split with wrestling.
Okay.
We'll see. I know next year, basketball, football, baseball at Horace, I think it's all varsity. They're splitting completely already.
Are they going to have a junior high that's going to feed them? Are they building a new junior high?
They have a junior high already. So the last year and this year, they've had a full middle school.
Okay.
Heritage Middle School. So we've been busing kids from there to Cheyenne when we have practice, things like that. But I mean, they're getting full already. West Fargo is growing so much. It's crazy. I understand the need for the split. I'm biased in that I don't want to split because we're finally in a spot now with our team where we know the kids from our youth that are going to be up in our room. They're in our room twice a night or twice a week. And I want them to continue to be in that room. They're seeing the place winners on the wall. They're seeing the Cheyenne Mustang emblem up there. I want them to continue to be a part of it. But I mean, you can't have everything in life, and wrestling kind of teaches you that, I suppose. So we'll be okay.
Yep. And so in the West, Minot had finally agreed to a new school, which is brand new. They've needed a second school or a new high school for a long time. And that finally went through. So that's going to be a big switch in the West. And I'm not sure what they'll do with Watford City yet. The numbers are just too big for them to go back down to B yet, is what High School Activities Association has told me.
Yep.
And so, we add more teams. I actually thought last year it wasn't so bad to have everybody qualify for state. I didn't mind. Honestly, it gave me an opportunity to see some wrestlers we probably wouldn't have got to see. And gave people opportunities to wrestle, even though there were some long days.
Yeah,
I don't know. People have proposed that for a long time until Class A has even more. Maybe you should just have everybody and just make it a big tournament. But I don't know. Right now, it's kind of interesting. The next 2 years in Class A wrestling, I'm not sure if I agree with it. But basically the region is going to determine your seeding at state. There's going to be no seeding in Class A. If people don't know that out there, they're basically going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and reverse it so that the one in the West is going to face the 8 in the East opening round. And no matter what ranking it is. So if you're injured and you take, you forfeit down to 8th just to qualify for state, you could be going 1 versus 1 first round. It's possible. or whatever it takes. They could be the best 2 wrestlers. And they say, well, the best wrestlers end up on top. You don't know that. I tell you what, I'm a fan of having true seeds because I want to see the best semifinal matches. I don't want the best match that should be in the finals, in the quarters, or in the semis. I want it to prepare to see the best match come finals. But yeah, I'm also a big fan.
I agree with you. I will say this. So I found out this, I want to say early December, that they were continuing to do that. I understand last year they kind of wanted to do this with no EDC or WDA. I get that. For me, I can see both sides, but it's frustrating to me if one of my wrestlers beats a kid four times throughout the year and then loses at regionals.
Right.
I understand you want to peak at the right time. I get that. But that's frustrating for me to understand as a coach. It's also
get caught in something, lat dropped, get defensive pinned. There's always something happens. Yep.
So that's what's frustrating for me. I understand it. In years past, this didn't make sense to what you brought up, John. You're going to have 2 of the best kids wrestling in the semis, and likely from the West. The West has just been better for a while. And so the 1 and 2 from the West are going to meet early and not in the finals, because normally they would be ranked number 1 and number 2 and hopefully meet there. As an East coach,
I can see people forfeit down to be on the opposite side. I can see 100%. a match not happening, so that they can be on the opposite side. I can see that.
Yeah, and so as a coach and how we run our program, we're going to wrestle to win every match, even if it doesn't help us at the state tournament.
Right.
I hope every coach is going to do that same thing. I know that there are some schools who, well, we want team points. We want to take first, second, third, whatever. I want my kids to wrestle to the best of their abilities, and wherever that puts them, that puts them there. They're going to be ready to wrestle at the state tournament. And that's our job as coaches, and our kids, same thing. You have to wrestle to win every match. So
I do like one thing that South Dakota does, and they have your lowest weight class. You have to wrestle half your matches. Half your weigh-ins have to be at your lowest weight class. I don't like that somebody now come January, they have their 2-pound weight allowance, and then they decide come regions, I'm going to wrestle 152, and they haven't been there all year.
Correct.
Or they're going to drop out of 152 to go down to 45 at regions when they haven't been there at all. And it messes up anything at the region you could do. And they wait till they see the seeds. This has happened in both regions now, where they see the seeds and they're not supposed to do it, but the next morning the kid decides to weigh in, at a different weight class than what the seed was. So then it messes up where the seeds are. That whole weight class has to be redrawn, and it happens because they see, guess what, this isn't going to work out best for our team.
Well, I think every year that I wrestled through high school, so graduated in 2008, you had to make the weight class before you got your 2-pound allowance.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh yeah.
I like that too. That was just the rule. And even if before Christmas I made that tournament at least once, okay, I did it. And then you can wrestle up whatever you need to do. But I already made it at the lowest possible weight I could.
Right.
That was just normal for us.
Like, the old weight certification. Yep.
Yeah. And now you see it every year. There's somebody that's either going up a weight, going down a weight. That's not how we coach. We want to wrestle our kids at their weights. What helps the team? That's it. We're going to find a way to be successful wherever they're at.
Now, how do you make your decisions during duels? Is it always your varsity wrestler not see an opportunity?
Yeah, it depends. With matchups, luckily, not luckily, I guess, unfortunately, depending on how you're looking at it. But in our first few years, we didn't have any options. It was whoever's weighing in today, they're going to be wrestling. There were times, though, in duels in our younger years where we would bump kids up 1 weight, 2 weights, just so we could get matches. It never really happened to where, well, our 13-pounder could get a forfeit here, and their 20-pounder is going to get a forfeit from us.
So you haven't had to have a lot of match strategies.
No, not really. This year is kind of the big one. We've had strategies for every duel, and with injuries, sicknesses, where kids are at. We've tried to think that through. Luckily, Lane, the assistant coach, my older brother.
Yep.
He stats and strategies and options where we can bump people. He's got Excel spreadsheets with 5-6 different scenarios that we're going through of the week of duels. So we've been doing that for Davies. We've been doing it for Valley City. We did it for West Fargo. I mean, it's nice to have Lane in that back pocket because he shows so many different things that we can do. Or if they throw this guy out, we're going to throw this guy out. And it always comes down to where do we have the best chance to score the most points? Mm-hmm. And that's usually what it's going to be. We luckily, like I said, with our team is pretty solid. We haven't had to bump much. And our kids are going out there and wrestling. And if it happens to where we do bump, they're confident. And I think they understand how confident we are in them, that we're not doing this just because this gives us the best chance to win this duel. We believe in you to do it. Can you do it? And luckily, I mean, everybody said, absolutely, let's do it. So we got some grinders on our team, and we got kids who love wrestling and love a challenge. So we're not those teams who I could bump up and get a tougher match. I think Clay Reden's bumped up and wrestled Troy Berg 2 years ago or
last year. Yeah.
You want to do that. And we're in the same boat. With Chase DeBlair, when he wrestled for us his 8th grade year, we bumped him up to wrestle better wrestlers. And you might not win the match, but you're going to learn who you are. And it's the same with our duel last week against Devil's Lake, who it's another team we've never beaten in our history. But we had Stetson Gisselbeck at 113. He's ranked number 3. Owen Lindstrom, I think, is ranked 6 or something at 120. We bumped Stetson up there to wrestle. Yep. We had Morgan Strandberg wrestle 113, and she got a pin. Stetson went up and wrestled a tough Owen Lindstrom 7-2 and lost. And came off that mat understanding I learned more from that loss than I probably would have learned from wrestling their 113-pounder. And that's the good thing. So we're not going to glorify a record. We know that our kids are going to be battle tested by the time February comes, and these kids are all buying into it, which is great. And they're going to be ready to go. So we are blessed. It took a long time to get where we're at. 7 years. It was tough. But these kids are here and they're ready to go. So we're excited about that.
Good deal.
Man, I love your approach. I mean, that's just the way that I think it's, what's needed to build a program, and I look forward to seeing what comes about this weekend. I think that'll be a lot of fun, and obviously you got a lot to build towards. So, yeah. I'm kind of curious on how do you run the youth program? I mean, it's all run in your high school room, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Are you finding some success there, getting kids in the room and getting kids that, that'll travel a little bit?
Yeah. So we have, pre-COVID, we had, I want to say from pre-K to 6th grade, 50 kids, which was phenomenal. Our first year, we had 4 or 5 kids total, which 3 of those kids are now on our varsity team, which is pretty cool. But they were also with Tech Team, Bison Wrestling Club, and those things. So they've been around and they knew what wrestling was. But the 2 Johnsons who were there knew that they were going to be on our Cheyenne team, and they wanted to be around the coaches and kind of go from there. So it worked out really well with them. But now West Fargo's youth team, I think is gone. They're not doing a youth program anymore, which shocked us a couple of years ago because that was a massive program. And I know Tech Team took some kids away from it, but that was just the more talented or skilled wrestlers. I still believe that there is a gold mine of kids like with us who aren't the most talented, who started out like we started out. Our parents were basketball players. They had 3 kids under 6 at that time. And we're going to put them into wrestling because it's the only thing that they could do. By the time Logan was done starting his first year and 1st grade, Lane started as a kindergartner, and then I started as a kindergartner. And we loved it. We were wrestling at home anyway. And so it was just one of those things where we can do it now with a plan. Like, here's a structure. But we weren't naturally talented either. We loved it and wanted to listen to coaches and learn moves. And there's a big percentage of kids now from pre-K to sixth grade who aren't naturally gifted in any sport. But you can wait until fourth grade and play FM football, or you can start wrestling at the age of 4, 5, 6 and build tools to be successful in every other sport. We have this thought process, and I don't even know if it's a thought, it's pretty much true. If you can have 50 kids in your youth program, you're probably only going to keep 25% by the time they get to high school. 25% of 5 is not very good numbers. 25% of 50 kids, that's a little bit better. And so the more kids that you can get in by making it fun, we do games, we play toe tag, mat chess, whatever it is, these kids want to come back. And once West Fargo's youth program was done, we got a lot of kids from there coming over who didn't want to pay the monthly fee to Tech Team or Bison Wrestling Club because they weren't quite there yet.
Right.
They're still able to come into our program and learn a double leg for 2 weeks, and a half Nelson and teeing up on the side and little basic things that we are still coaching with our high school kids, but now they're getting it at age 6 instead of 15 when they just decided to come out from football. That's kind of it. We do it Mondays and Wednesday nights. We have pre-K to first grade from 5:50 to 6:20, and then second grade to sixth grade from 6:20 to 7. We cover most of the same things, just at a little bit more in-depth level for that second group, but we're still getting kids from Bison Wrestling Club on Wednesday nights, Tech Team, wherever it is, that have been doing, dive through tilts and all this stuff, but still like coming in because they can focus on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, where should my head be on this single leg? Where should my knee be at? And they're getting more time with an individualized coach who's going to be their coach in high school and understanding how they run a practice, understand how they teach things. And they're just seeing it from a different angle. So we believe that there is a spot in these practices for uber talented kids and kids who have no idea what's going on. As long as they keep coming back, they're going to build friendships, teammates, and they're going to want to be a part of that group as they get older. And that's kind of it. Our program really started to take off once we started that youth program. You get the familiarity with your coaches, buddies, teammates, things like that. And that goes a long way because there's a lot of kids who aren't super talented and their best friend is really, really good, but they're still part of that team. And they know that I'm putting the same amount of work as they are, and I still get to be on this team and this lineup. And when the dual team wins, I win. And that's kind of the big thing. So that's it for us. The youth program isn't super, super in-depth, but it's basics. And it's stuff that we had to coach in our high school room our first 3 years. And now we get to do it with 5-year-olds, which is awesome.
Nope. I commend you because I saw your program start taking off, and I thought that was the right correlation right there. You kind of reap what you sow. Exactly.
Yep, absolutely.
Definitely. Well, we're sitting at an hour already. That's amazing. Bill and I, when we start going, not to take you out of this, but I want to talk a couple other things too. Bill, give us some response of some Big Ten wrestling this last week. Kyle Berwick, great match. I was sitting there, and you were one of the first ones to get on Twitter and compliment it. And I was going, I was jealous because I was going to beat you.
Hey, I tell you what, it was a great weekend of Big Ten wrestling, and it was from Friday to Sunday. There was wrestling to watch, and it was a lot of fun. You can even go back a little bit, prior to the Sunday match. The Friday night match, you got Minnesota having a great duel and beating Nebraska for the first time in forever. It seemed like, and so you had some great matches there, and then Sunday Wisconsin comes in and really big brothers the Gophers, which they haven't beat the Gophers in Minnesota for 14 years or something.
I did not have a good outlook after Minnesota looked so good against Nebraska. I was going, oh my, this is going to be a great duel. Yeah, Wisconsin pulls it out.
But Kyle looked good, and he, he just, one thing we know is, you're not going to wear him out. So, you start getting a chance to it coming down in the third period and then into overtime. I'm going to put my chips on Kyle. and I don't care who it's against at that point, because he's tough, and he's, he works hard, and I think he's just naturally got, bottom that'll go forever, right? He just, there's a lot of wind in there. So, I think that Randy could still go 7 minutes. So I don't worry about Kyle doing it. So yeah, it was a great weekend. We had some, that was a fun duel to watch. And the duel was kind of still in the balance. I thought, obviously the match of the duel for Wisconsin to me is at 57.
57.
Yeah, I don't know. There was something, obviously. I think there's something that wasn't right with Brayton Lee. I mean, he did not look like a Brayton Lee that we've seen in the past. But yeah, he got schooled on his feet, and that was kind of the difference in the duel.
He looked a little shell shocked after he got.
Yeah, it was really strange. It was strange. I mean, and then he looked so good on Friday night. So who knows? It's that, hey, guys take losses, and that's nobody gets out of this deal unscathed. So well, maybe nobody but Gable, but and what about that, right? He scored over 40 points this weekend in 2 duels, and that's a heavyweight, right? It looks like he's drilling. I mean, he looks like he's in the Cheyenne room just drilling at 3/4 speed or half speed, and
just hard.
I would love to have him in my room drilling. Yes.
Yeah, just not with you, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we have other kids for him.
Yeah. No.
So Lex, who's your college team?
To be honest, I like wrestling. We grew up, I guess, watching, the Gophers. I remember being in Grizzly wrestling camp at the NDSU complex there, and Brock Lesnar had come in and was signing autographs, and seeing him wrestle at the Bison Open was unbelievable when we were younger. So we were always Gopher fans. And then obviously Scott Schiller went there, who was my teammate. So cheered him on a bunch there. And we've always loved the Iowa crowd, the Iowa style of wrestling. And we get that a little bit from Marquardt as well with the Steiners. So we've always been excited with them. I thought, for me, and other people might get mad, but before Spencer Lee, Iowa wrestling was tough to watch. It was 7 minutes hard, absolutely, but no creating opportunities, no trying to score. It was trying to wear opponents out.
Just hand fighting, yeah.
And that's why Penn State got attracted, because they were pinning people from
exactly.
everywhere.
And that's why I really started watching and caring about Penn State, is because David Taylor switched it all. And then you had Ed Ruth, and then Bo Nickel and Jason Nolf, and all these guys, Zane Rutherford, they just like scoring points. And I don't care if I'm down 10-2, I'm still going to continue to do this, or I'm up 10-2. It's offense, 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 and opportunities create good things. And that's how we coach at Cheyenne. It's try and score points. I mean, you work 2 hours a night every day for 4 months in the practice room on how to score. Do it out in a 6-minute match. And that's why I love Penn State.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how I felt. I have always felt is if you're the better wrestler, let's try to create more exchanges, right? I mean, I don't care if the first two exchanges you give up takedowns, and actually, we can go back to Brayton Lee. Brayton Lee gives up a first takedown lots of times. I mean, but you don't give up the last takedown very often, and so I you're right on, and there was a lot of, and that's I'm not an Iowa hater by any means, but
Iowa lover, Iowa hater.
I felt the same. I felt the same way, right? I mean, it was pretty hard to watch. There's a lot of guys in there.
I loved Iowa enough that I withstood it, but I was kind of envious and jealous of what Penn State was having going on, because you just saw the talent level. Not that it was separated by that much, but their wrestlers made it separated because of the points they scored. They separated their talent so much, and all of a sudden you'd see a match where you thought you were in it, and then they're up 8-6, and then it's 10-6, and then you're going, what the heck? We usually win these matches like 6-5, 6-4, or something.
Yeah.
And so I definitely always want to be a fly in that room.
One of the people with Iowa that really frustrated me and was super talented, and this is where I started to just not really pay attention to him anymore, and was Derek St. John.
Okay.
Sure. Super talented. But it was 1-0 match, 2-1. But then they'll wrestle these kids who aren't very good compared to them, and they dominate. Mm-hmm. That's frustrating. And one who does it now, and this is not Big Ten, but Dayton Fix, Oklahoma State. Yeah. One of the most talented wrestlers I've ever seen in my life, and destroys kids who are lesser than him. But anytime it's somebody who is pretty good, he doesn't do anything. It's just all defense. And I know they say defense wins championships, but it doesn't. And college wrestling and wrestling, you have to score points. And the frustrating thing is Dayton can score points, but he just chooses not to. That's one thing that frustrates me a lot, because on the world level, he is high flying. And then he wrestles RBY from Penn State, and offense is going to win.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I just want to mention one quick thing. If people don't know that out there, I'll mention this before we go into I got some big questions coming up for you, rapid fire questions. But I just want to mention one of my favorite men in the world, Lisbon ex-coach Storhog. He's got a big tournament this weekend down in Lisbon, and I always want to kind of promote that a little bit. It'll have some of the best Class B talent. St. Mary's usually goes there. They have several other good teams. I haven't looked on track exactly all the teams that they've invited and who's coming this year. They've had everybody in the past. They've had some really big schools that have gone there over the years. They have some, I don't know what year that was, probably about your first year of coaching or second. They had, what's the team from Minnesota?
Apple Valley was there.
Apple Valley came in
Actually,
there.
Lakeville North is coming this year, which is kind of the new Apple Valley.
So, just going to mention that. Yep.
Yeah.
So I knew they had somebody big coming. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So that'll be exciting. It'll be a good tournament. Always a good tournament. But
so that is pretty much, besides what's happening in the Metro Duels. South Dakota has their East-West Duels, kind of the same thing that West Fargo does, and it is the premier. I mean, it gets stacked down there where the peers will go against the teams from the East that they don't get to see the East and West face each other. And it's one of their big spectacles in the state, and the coaches look forward to it because then they get to see all the different talent. But, we'll have a South Dakota coach on hopefully next week. I took a week off because Bill was a little sick last week and I didn't want to put any stress on him.
I tested positive for PEDs.
Yeah. And so he's recovered and he's back this week, but we're going to have some rapid fire questions. You've seen this through the other guys, so you know probably some of the questions, but, here's the first one for you. What is it like to be coached by you if asked by ask one of your wrestlers?
I can be mean. I can be really mean sometimes, but I can also be pretty fun. A lot of kids, I think, understand when they come off the mat and they've busted their butt for 6 minutes. We're proud. I'm proud. I expect a lot, but I know what I expect of you. You are capable of doing.
Okay. You play the bad cop a lot?
Yeah, with different kids. Lane will be the bad cop, then Logan, and then me. So we have to figure out personalities to who's going to be the bad cop.
Okay, next one. Gatorade or Powerade?
You could have asked me this in high school and college, and I would have said Gatorade. But Powerade has really, really been good lately. So I think I'm back on Powerade.
Okay. Any color?
Yeah, so they made one, and I don't even know if they make it anymore, but it was like blue raspberry cherry or something. Yeah. And it's a seasonal thing, and I wish they would make that all year round because I would buy it all.
Okay. Popsicles or dilly bars?
Dilly bars, but so I have sensitive teeth. Eating ice cream or anything cold, it takes forever and it just melts. So, but yeah, I'll go dilly bar.
Okay. Give me 3 characteristics that all wrestlers need to have.
Number one, I think they need to be respectful of their coaches, respectful of the sport, and respectful of the time that it's going to take to be successful. Obviously hardworking. I think of guys again like Kellen Hornet, who that was it. They were hardworking. When they came into that room, they didn't have a whole lot, but being hardworking has brought them to where they are. And then I think being determined or having a goal in mind, persistent, having a goal in mind, I think, is the big thing. You can go through the motions and say, "Oh, I want to be a state champion." Well, how are you going to get there? What are you going to do in order to get there? And I think those are the three big things.
Awesome. Mama's boy or rebel?
I think mom and dad are watching this right now. I was mama's boy. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Okay. Fast paced or consistently slow?
Fast paced. I hate walking next to or behind slow people. I have places to be.
I was just going to say, you got somewhere to go, right?
Yeah, and it's not.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, not that I just want to get to other places fast and enjoy things, but pick your feet up and walk. That's my thing.
Well, I'll give you a quick story. So we go to the mall to get Christmas gifts or something in Bismarck. My wife and I'll drive different vehicles because when I go to the parking lot, I will run. And I don't know why I do it. I'll start jogging. I'm 50-some years old and I'll start jogging to the car. She goes, "What are you doing?" I am not slow. I cannot just no, let's go.
Yeah, don't like sitting still.
Yep. Physical or mental athlete?
I think mental. Again, growing up, I was never the strongest or most athletic. And I thought at that point, you have to be a physical specimen in order to be successful at wrestling. The older I got, and then I guess the 4 years of college wrestling, it's mental. You have to see what you're doing in a different setting and visualize things and learning moves and all that stuff. I think being mentally tough, it's hard to beat a mentally tough kid. And I think with these kids that we're coaching too, it's if we get into overtime, kind of like Kyle Berwick, I'm betting my money on our kids. They're mentally tough. They've persevered through this in practice. And I'm going to take a mentally tough athlete over a physically tough athlete every day. Awesome.
Favorite holiday?
Independence Day, 4th of July.
Like to get to a lake or?
Yeah. My in-laws have a spot in Minnesota. But otherwise, I mean, it's summer. You can do more and celebrate the greatest country in the world.
Awesome. Dan Gable or Kale Sanderson?
Man. So again, Dan Gable, mentally unbelievable. And then obviously physically unbelievable too. Kale Sanderson, I think in this age of social media and all of that has reached more people now. With how he wrestled, how he coached. And so I feel like Dan Gable might have done more for USA wrestling or just USA in general, where I feel like Kale Sanderson has done more for wrestling now than Dan Gable ever did. Just my opinion, not taking anything away from Gable.
No, what's interesting,
he's not watching. He might come on here and we'll send him your direction
on the list.
But I don't think he's watching. So,
but Kale's this generation's Dan Gable,
100%,
definitely. Favorite number?
8.
Okay.
Mine too.
There we go.
Okay. Any reason?
Just my baseball number growing up. I was 8. I graduated 2008. Millennials can probably say I'm an older millennial, I guess. But you always had your emails that you made up. It always had to end with a number.
8.
8 was my number that I always did. So that was it.
That's pretty good. Best wrestler you've ever wrestled?
Oh, man. This will be tough. I mean, there were some studs in college that I wrestled. But I'm trying to think. High school wrestler from North Dakota. I remember. So this is another one. Joe Latham from Bismarck High. I wrestled him my senior year. He went down. though. So he did what we talked about. He was at 152 and then came down to 45. And he beat me in the semis my senior year. So at that time, he was probably the best kid that I had wrestled in North Dakota. Steve Marcourt almost threw me out at the Sir Toma duel tournament against St. Michael Albertville against Mike Thorne when Mike Thorne was in his prime. Our starter at 103 was injured, and we were in the championship, and he didn't want to forfeit, but he thought better of throwing a 90-pound eighth grader out against Mike Thorne. So I could have wrestled him, and thankfully I didn't. My trajectory probably would have been a little different.
Any habit you learned in wrestling that you still do today?
No, I think just focusing on the bigger picture. Like for me, I just talked about Joe Latham beating me in the semis my senior year. Logan made it to the finals. He was the only Lunde brother to make it to the state finals, and lost to Phil Basting. So none of us were state champions. That was my goal. Like I wanted to be the only Lunde who was a state champion wrestler. But you just focus on the bigger picture. After that, it was, okay, I got to take third place. And then I lost my last ever high school match. I took fourth to a kid I had beat 3 or 4 times that year. And then right after that, I'm going off on a tangent here, but
fine.
Clay Nagel talked to me right after that match and said, hey, we really want you at Concordia. We have Logan and Lane here. And so I thought, man, I just lost to a kid that I beat 4 times this year. And it wasn't great. Like, it wasn't a good match. He didn't deserve to beat me. And I still got this guy who wants me on his team and wants me to continue wrestling. And I think that right there kind of helped me understand that there's bigger things in life than wins and losses. And that's kind of how, that's a habit that I have now. Bad things are going to happen. It's how you react to them and how you go from there.
I think it becomes a big picture. If you can somehow get kids to say, yes, we're trying to peak at state, but it's not the end all. If you don't end when you're at, there's so much more that you've learned from this sport. And if they can get past that and just wrestle, it's so much better. They get too much pressure on themselves worrying about a place at state versus just wrestling. And absolutely. I've seen it. I've seen some of the best wrestlers not perform because they get too stressed at the big time, at the state tournament. Yep. Okay. Swamp People Survivor or The Voice?
None. I don't watch a whole lot of TV. We do, but it's shows. TV shows.
If you're putting one, which one would you be found in?
Shoot, not The Voice. I can't sing. Probably Swamp People. Honestly,
you like to hunt and fish, get out and do anything there?
I used to, but wrestling took over our entire fall and then winter, and we never really have since then. But yes, I do love hunting. Some of my best memories were hunting ducks and pheasants with some of my buddies from Kindred. So those were fun.
Cat, bird, or dog?
Dog, 100%. Yep.
That's what Bill says every time. It better be. Yep. Well, awesome. That was really good. Those rapid fire questions. You always learn some good personality things. What's interesting about wrestling coaches is you find a lot of characteristics between them that just matches, because we all have this certain drive to us, and having that it's a brotherhood, of trying to get younger wrestlers and kids to be the best they possibly can be. And it's a teaching thing. A coach is I'd say the highest class of a teacher, because you get to teach coach. Kids at a different
that's part of it too, where we started. We're trying to teach these kids how to be after high school. Because in our first few years, we weren't going to be coaching a college athlete. Chances are they weren't going to continue to wrestle in college, but it's what type of human they're going to be after this, and learning that life is hard, and you come back again the next day and it's going to be another hard day, and you're going to come back the next day. It's going to be hard again. And you figure out who you are and how you treat people and how you treat yourself. And that's the big thing.
So true.
Bill, well said.
I tell you what, I could take little clips of this. You've been a good guest tonight.
Great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, you're very convicted to the sport, and you can tell. I've watched it since day one. And what's interesting is that the family thing can almost see, like, the two brothers, they stare, and it's almost like they know what each one's going to say, but yet you go off the mat and it's like, what are you doing? It's the brother thing, like you have conflicts that go beyond what actually the sport is. But I've watched you guys as brothers work together very well. And I'm one of these people at tournaments, I will watch people and just absorb. I want to learn of what are people doing to be successful in every program, because I try to see the little successes, even in the coaches that have 2-3 wrestlers versus the ones that have full teams.
It's I remember when I was hired as the head coach at Sheyenne in 2015. This was 2014, I want to say, when we were starting it. They asked if I had anybody in mind for coaches. And I said Logan and Lane. I don't want anybody else. I think those guys should be it. And at the time, this was before Legacy had a team. Our AD had reached out to Stephen Monk as well. And then he was going back to Bismarck. So that didn't work out. And a couple other people, but they said we can't have brothers or a family setting as coaches. It's not going to happen. And I had said, okay, then you're gonna have to find a new head coach. I'm not going to coach without these two guys because I know Logan or Lane can go anywhere in the state and be successful. And I don't want to lose them. So we're talking about this Horace split too. I don't want them to go to Horace and start coaching. So I'm trying to do the best thing for this team. And I mean, there are days and weeks, whatever, Lane and Logan could be the head coach of this team and nothing would change. We just have this structure, and started off with all wrestling at West Fargo. All of us wrestled under Clay Nagel at Concordia. So we all have the same technique, lessons, all that stuff, but we think very differently. And that was what the school was worried about. They said, no, if you guys all think the same, it's not going to be good. If one kid's in the doghouse, then he's in the doghouse for all of you. I laughed. I said, you don't know us. It's never going to be like that. We think very differently when it comes to certain aspects of the sport of wrestling, but we do all believe in the same thing. This is what's going to work well. Hard work, respect, and all that stuff. And then we can have differing opinions.
Well, awesome. I tell you what, it's the season's coming down to the end, and I see good things in your future.
Yeah, we hope so. This will be a good weekend for us. We've never won a duel at Metro Duels in our history. Sorry, Bismarck Century. We're going to try and win that one. We're going to try and win a few of these.
You'll have a great shot. I think that's a great opening match for Century and you guys, because it's going to test us. You guys have actually more guys ranked and higher ranking in a lot of the weights. It's going to come down to bonus points where Century has an opportunity to have pins, and you guys have opportunity to have pins. They got to do it.
Yeah, we're excited, and we're looking at this as well. Like, we could match up with Williston, not Legacy anymore, but first round of state, second round of state, something. So this will be kind of a good test for us, and yeah, we're excited. I mean, these kids love competition, and this is a pretty high competition level, so we're excited.
Well, awesome. So, Bill, anything else? We've gone almost an hour and a half, and I don't want to hold on a lot. I got a lot of things I could talk about, but
me too. Yeah, no, I do too. I'll wrap up the Sheyenne discussion, I guess, just saying, hey, I'm excited to kind of see how the season ends. I'm excited to see what happens at the state tournament, and I'm still be pulling for Sheyenne and a lot of these events. So that I'm sold. I was before. I was a closet fan in the past, and this is just kind of helped that. I will say this: I do have a grandson that plays football for Shanley, and I had to sit through 2 Cheyenne football games, which were a little tough on me, but they were fun to watch, right? I mean, I'm looking at all those kids on the sideline, going, man, they got to have more of these kids out for wrestling. So I'm
trying.
Yeah, no, really I do see some of them on the roster, and we talked about some of them tonight. So, really a it's a great program that's on the build. So that I'll wrap up my Sheyenne discussion with that. So great job, and we look forward to seeing what happens and I will say this, when we see your camp and you got Troy Steiner there, and you just know you're doing the right things. So
thank you.
We'll kind of see how that all shakes out, and I'm excited to see the state tournament. So on top of that, I guess I do want to talk a little bit about college wrestling, right? We do have the biggest duel in the country coming up this weekend with Penn State and Michigan, number 1 versus number 3. I think number 1 versus number 2. I think they're probably going to be the top 2 teams in the country at the national tournament, depending on who Iowa ends up putting in the lineup at 133. But that is going to be a blast of a duel. I think you got actually 10 really good matches. I think I think there's definitely sure favorites at most of them, but that duel could come down to 2 guys that are not unranked because they rank 33 guys just about, but 2 lower ranked guys. It could come down to that. I actually think it's going to come down to heavyweight. I think it's going to be a battle there with Mason Paris and Greg Kirkliet. I think we're going to, I actually think Kirkliet's going to, shock a lot of people in that match after, a lot of people have him in the tournament, the Big Ten and the NCAA is kind of getting beat up by some of those guys last year. This is a different guy. That was a guy that hadn't trained all year, coming off of staph infections and spending time in the hospital. And, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So Friday night, I would tune into the Big Ten Network.
DVR. DVR.
Yeah, there's some of you guys I know will have to be wrestling but that's if you can DVR it. If you're not out watching a wrestling tournament, there's going to be hopefully the weather doesn't screw things up, but that there is some people probably going to be stuck at home with some weather again. That's must watch TV. One of our guests, Shane Sparks, will be on the call, and so that's fun.
He does a great job. I listened to him again the other day. Iowa Duel, and he loves it, right? He just loves the sport as much as you and I and everybody that we've had on here has done. So so that'll be great. Northern State is supposed to wrestle at Moorhead on Sunday. Hopefully that duel happens. We've been losing a lot of duels to COVID-related stuff. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I think Minot goes to Wisconsin Parkside. They were also supposed to go to Upper Iowa. Upper Iowa's already been canceled. Hopefully they do get to Parkside. So hopefully Jimmy gets some matches in for Mankato.
Holy cow, they got one duel, and Mankato's got one duel they've wrestled so far, and their next one is not till the 28th of January. So, I mean, this is a team that could get to and they really haven't got to any tournaments. No. I mean, they had half a squad at the Jim Koch and half that went to the Luther. Yeah, they're and I guarantee you those guys are battling in the room, and Jim will have them ready come regional time. But geez, you got to get some. I mean, I'm a fan, right? So I want to see them wrestle, but I'm hoping the 28th and the 29th they wrestle at Minot at Mary. I think I'll be at another duel. I think on the 28th, but hopefully I can get to see him at Mary on that Saturday. So, but yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff happening, as far as that goes. Hopefully some of these duels start happening, but it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. A lot of great high school matches to watch. There's some great college matches, both.
Did you look at the
D1, D2
international schedule? I kind of
Yeah, that's the Euregan. Yeah, that'll be a great. That's always a fun one to try to follow, and then we got some great guys going, great and gals going to the Euregan again. In the meantime, I think we're going to have a pretty big duel between Iran and United States down in Texas coming up. So hopefully I'm still hoping Gable gets into that.
I forgot. I got to put that on my calendar. I always forget that that's going on. I've had it on the side for a long time on my one at school, and I tell you what, I go in for surgery on the 31st. So that show on the 2nd, we'll see if I'm going to be capable. I'm going to have a little bit of back surgery for a disc that's out. And so between 6 and 7, I'm getting a disc removed on the 31st. So about a week and a half, 2 weeks Monday. So it won't be too long here. And so I've got, I do have some guests lined up for the 2nd and the 9th coming up, but I'm still, I got to get back. I was supposed to get a hold of Gable sometime this week, and this is the end of the week come tomorrow and Friday. So I better call tomorrow, see if I can get him on like the next show. So you never know. So guys, pay attention. Next week could be big. I haven't lined anything up. Then hopefully I can get Barry McCleary on here in the near future, and Beckman from New Salem, get some of the old guys, get some old stories in there. And we'll keep doing this all the way through the state tournament. I'm hoping every Wednesday from here on out, if at all possible. And then we'll do, before you know it, we'll be doing region wrap-ups and state wrap-ups and go into a little freestyle and college stuff. So time flies. We're already halfway through January. Like I said, this has got 4 solid weeks here in wrestling. We'll be done in the state of North Dakota for high school.
Hey, one thing else I want to mention: NDSU had a great duel out at Wyoming. Owen Pence pins the number 3 guy in the country, and Stephen Buchanan. I think it surprised a lot of people. Well, it surprised everybody, right?
Yes.
But man, he's an animal. He did the same thing last year. Pinned Schultz at the national tournament, number 2 seed. So that was great to see. NDSU kind of rolling. South Dakota State took a trip. They were supposed to have a couple other duels. They got canceled due to COVID. They get on a plane and fly to Virginia, wrestle the Virginia duels. So Damian Hahn is doing everything he can to get his guy matches. I should mention, I guess I hate to say it, Augustana did put a whooping on the Wolves at Northern State last week. So that was I was there. I wasn't there. I was home with COVID watching on TV, but it was fun. I mean, actually, the Northern guys fought, but that's a good in-state duel. Two South Dakota teams. So yeah, a lot of fun. Follow wrestling. Yes.
Promote the sport whenever possible, guys. And I tell you what, Lex, great job tonight. I appreciate everything you're doing for the sport. I think they've got the right person in the right place, and hopefully you're there for years to come, because I know that you do the right stuff for the sport.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's the plan.
Okay. Well, you guys have a great night out there. Wrestling, go watch some wrestling and promote it. You guys have a great night. John Gums, Dakota Grappler, we're out.